You do everything right in your relationships. You show up, you listen, you remember the small things, and somehow it still feels like something is missing. Not because your partner isn't trying, not because the love isn't real, but because a part of you cannot seem to receive it. You wonder if you're broken, or too demanding, or just wired wrong. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The problem was never how much love you're getting. It's what happened long before anyone loved you at all. Somewhere in your childhood, your emotional world went unnoticed, and your brain adapted in a way that still runs the show today. Think about your childhood for a second. Not the big dramatic moments, the quiet ones. Did anyone ever ask how you were really feeling? Or did you learn to keep that information to yourself? Most people assume neglect means something happened to them. Something visible, a yelling parent, a missing one. But there's a quieter version of this. Psychologists call it childhood emotional neglect, or CEN. It isn't about what your parents did to you. It's about what they failed to notice. Your physical needs were met. You had food, clothes, a roof over your head. But your inner world, your fears, your sadness, your excitement, went unseen. Dr. Jonice Webb, who has spent her career studying this pattern, calls it an invisible force. She explains that CEN operates like a non-event. There's no specific memory to point to, no single moment you can blame, just an absence, a consistent, quiet failure to mirror what you were feeling back to you. And because there's no obvious wound, most people never even realize it happened. They just grow up believing something is wrong with them, without ever knowing why. But here's where it gets interesting. That absence didn't just disappear. It taught your nervous system a rule. If nobody responds to your feelings become a liability. So you did the only thing a child can do to survive that environment. You shut them down. You learned to hold your feelings back, to treat your own emotions as something inconvenient, something to manage quietly instead of express. That single adaptation, the one that helped you survive childhood, is the exact same adaptation now sabotaging your adult relationships. This is where Dr. Webb's research gets specific. She identifies 5 ways this childhood pattern shows up in adult love. The first is lowered absorption. Because you experienced a watered-down version of love growing up, you don't have a reference point for the real thing. So when someone loves you fully, it doesn't register. It slides right past you. The second is emotional walling. The armor you built as a child to protect yourself is still standing, and it blocks love from actually reaching you, even when your partner is doing everything right. Now, something surprising happens. The third pattern is distrust. Somewhere along the way, you learned that emotions were burdens. So now, when someone offers you genuine affection, some part of you doesn't trust it. It feels suspicious, almost threatening. The fourth is numbness. Here's the part most people don't expect. Your brain cannot selectively shut off pain while keeping joy fully available. When you wall off heartbreak, you also wall off the ability to feel loved completely. And the fifth is vulnerability aversion, a quiet fear that if people see who you really are, they'll eventually leave. So you keep a small, safe distance, even from people who are trying to get close. There's another layer to this, and it's the part that explains why some people don't just feel disconnected, they feel obsessed. Researcher Annie Tanasugarn has studied how early emotional deprivation can rewire the search for connection entirely. Instead of walking away from love that feels unsafe, some people chase it harder. They idealize a partner, then devalue them the moment that partner needs space. Underneath it is a quiet, painful logic. If they need distance, they must be rejecting me. I have to protect myself first. This isn't weakness. It's a nervous system trying to prevent the same abandonment it experienced decades earlier. What most people don't realize is that this pattern has a name too. Psychologist Robert Firestone called it emotional hunger, a kind of primitive ache caused by early deprivation. He drew a sharp line between genuine love and hunger disguised as love. Genuine love respects boundaries and encourages independence. Emotional hunger looks like possessiveness. It uses another person to fill a void instead of connecting with them as they are. Firestone even described something he called the fantasy bond, where two people quietly agree to numb each other instead of truly knowing each other. It looks like closeness from the outside, but it's actually a way of avoiding real intimacy altogether. This changes everything about how we should think about disconnected relationships. The Gottman Institute has studied what they call relationship loneliness, that strange experience of lying next to someone and still feeling completely alone. And it's not just emotional, it's neurological. When emotional connection breaks down, the brain fails to mirror your partner's feelings the way it's designed to. Oxytocin, the hormone responsible for bonding and trust, stops being released. Meanwhile, your brain starts treating the disconnection itself as a threat, raising cortisol, keeping your body on edge, even when nothing dangerous is actually happening. This is what researchers call the roommate syndrome. Two people sharing a home, a bed, a life, but never actually reaching each other. Conversations stay logistical. Who's picking up groceries? What time is the appointment? Meanwhile, small bids for connection, a glance, a comment, a moment of vulnerability, go quietly unanswered, not out of malice, out of habit. The same habit that started decades earlier, in a childhood where feelings were met with silence. Picture someone who's been with a great partner for years. On paper, everything is right. The partner is attentive, affectionate, consistent, and yet this person keeps waiting for something to go wrong, or worse, feeling almost nothing when things go right. They can't explain it, even to themselves. They just know that when their partner says "I love you," it lands somewhere shallow, like it never quite reaches the part of them that needed to hear it. That's not a flaw in the relationship. That's the lowered absorption Dr. Webb describes playing out in real time, decades after it was first installed. Here's the part worth sitting with. None of this means you're incapable of love. It means you were trained, very early, to survive without receiving it fully. That training kept you safe once. It just isn't serving you anymore. And the good news, according to both Webb and the Gottman Institute, is that this pattern isn't permanent. It's learned, which means it can be unlearned. Healing starts with naming what happened, not as blame toward your parents, but as an explanation for a pattern that finally makes sense. The Gottman Institute even offers a simple structure for relearning emotional honesty. You start with, "I feel." Then you describe the situation without blame. Then you state what you actually need. It sounds almost too simple. But for someone who spent a lifetime keeping emotions hidden, saying those three things out loud is often the first act of real vulnerability they've ever practiced. There's also a quieter kind of healing that happens outside of therapy rooms and structured formulas, and it starts with simply noticing. Noticing the moment you deflect a compliment. Noticing the urge to downplay a good thing before it can disappoint you. Noticing when you feel closeness, and your first instinct is to create distance. None of these moments need to be fixed immediately. They just need to be seen, the same way you needed to be seen decades ago. That act of noticing, on its own, starts to rewire the pattern, slowly, the way any nervous system change happens, not through force, but through repetition. So if love has never quite felt like enough, it's worth asking a different question. Not what's wrong with the people who love you, but what happened to the part of you that struggles to let it in. You're not asking for too much, you were just never shown how to receive it. And that's not a life sentence, that's a starting point. If this explains something you've never had words for, you're probably not the only one who needed to hear it. Let me know in the comments if this sounds familiar,